remember that AI SEO still runs on SEO, and the craze about AI SEO is a little bit, I think, too big, because search engines, especially Google, still rule, and you have to play by their rules. But if you want to rank in those all chatbots, you still, like, the 90% of what you have to do is remember about SEO fundamentals. And if you do that, you will take care of basically everything you need. Hi, this is Olga Zarr, and this is SEO in 2026.
Olga, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
So my tip is about AI SEO. You should remember that AI SEO still runs on SEO, even though, like, we all know that SEO has now kind of turned into AI SEO, and no one really thinks about SEO without thinking about AI. And I want to remind everyone that AI SEO still is based on all good SEO.
Okay, so I'm just thinking about that statement, is based on all good SEO. Does that mean that existing best practice SEO assists with AI SEO?
Yeah, kind of. I have analyzed exactly what you should do, what you can do to dominate AI SEO, to rank in AI chatbots and all of that. And all of the things you should do map directly to the things you need to do in SEO in order to rank, to be indexed, to be crawled. I was able to map around 4 areas, 4 main areas, which you always have to take care of in SEO, which is technical SEO, content strategy, content creation, content structure, user experience, and authority. And all of them ideally map out to AI SEO, to ranking in chatbots and all of that.
And you also say that AI chatbots barely register. So compared with Google, people's usage of search engines primarily is around more traditional search.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the fundamental things that I think we should all think about when we start to panic about SEO, because I now have so many clients asking me about, do you do AI SEO? And they kind of are asking me if old SEO still applies, or if they should pivot to GIO, LLMO, AIO, and all of those. What I'm trying to tell them, what I'm educating my listeners, is that SEO fundamentals, they all still apply, because if we look at data, I think I have the data which is relatively fresh. If we look at the data, the market share of search engines is kind of almost the same. Google lost maybe 1% of traffic with regards to chatbots, and all traffic combined from chatbots is around 3% of traffic that search engines generate. And for example, ChatGPT versus Google, the number of times one is used versus the other is 370 something times more, which is we are comparing millions to billions. And Google, I think, is winning this entire game, because Google created AI overviews, which now are in 60% or even more of search results. So Google kind of baked AI into their search results. If we want to rank in those AI overviews or in those chatbots, because clients like to ask about it, like to be ranked there, even though they know that the percentage is small, they hear about it all the time, so they want to rank. And what I'm saying is, if you rank well on Google or on Bing, you will rank well in those chatbots. And the basics of SEO, which we were doing for Google, are the same. Now we also should maybe look more into Bing, because Bing feeds ChatGPT. So if we want to take care of the entire system, we still need to apply fundamentals of SEO, take care of Bing, take care of Google, because these two basically power most of the chatbots we are using. So basically things are kind of the same. we should never forget about those SEO fundamentals, because without them, we won't be able to like even enter the game of either Google or Bing or ChatGPT, Perplexity, and all of that.
So when you talk about Bing feeding ChatGPT, what are the key differences between optimizing for Bing versus optimizing for Google?
To be honest, like the same things you do for Google usually work for Bing. The biggest difference is that in Bing, it is usually way, way easier to rank. And if you rank well in Bing, very often your rankings in Google may follow as well. Because I learned this on one of the trainings that traffic from Bing is kind of a validation, maybe a validation for Google. And if Google sees that you are getting some traffic from Bing, because like I think Google's safe search system works in this way that Google may know which URL is getting some traffic, and this may help you even further in Google with Google. So you should definitely take care of both. And one of the differences also with Bing, like additional step you may do is, for example, set up Bing Webmaster Tools, add your website there, because Bing is not that aggressive with crawling as Google. Google crawls almost everything, and with Bing you have to ask it explicitly to crawl specific pages, specific URLs. So maybe this is the biggest difference. But in terms of how easy it is to rank, of course, with Bing, it is way, way easier.
Okay, got you. So traditional search can bring in the majority of traffic nowadays, but if you do want to rank in AI-driven search, ChatGPT, then apparently citations are much more important than rankings.
Yeah. With in ChatGPT, in ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or other chatbots, we are not really talking about rankings, but we are talking about citations, and whether your citation, the mention of your brand, is just the mention or if it is a linked mention. So this is like this difference between rankings in normal search, traditional search, and chatbots, because like they are citing you, and here you have like specific rank, specific position. So so we are talking about citations, citations in ChatGPT and in all those LLMs.
And we're also saying beforehand, when we're talking about getting ranked on AI, you were saying chunks beat pages, i.e. chunks, sections are more important, and how your sections are structured, and the chunks that are occurring, I guess, in pages are more important than just a lengthy page that may be published on your website.
Yeah, because like there is this mechanism, chunk retrieval, which basically means that AI like scans the entire like article, and it is kind of divided into different chunks. And if your article is structured in such a way that a specific paragraph, for example, answers a specific question or explains a specific concept, and it is done in such a way that by reading each different paragraph you can learn something without like reading the entire thing, then you will basically stand a higher chance of being shown as, for example, the answer in AI overviews. Because in AI overviews, mostly like Google has seen a huge increase in very, very long tail queries, usually questions. And when people are asking, what is this? How do I do that? Why blah, blah, blah? Then if your article is structured in this way, then you will have a higher chance of being shown there. Plus, in also, for example, people also ask sections if we are talking about strictly Google search results.
And you also say that unlinked mentions count. So how do you measure the value of an unlinked mention, and how does that value compare to the value of a linked mention?
In AI overviews and in chatbots, you can have either like a normal link to your website or just a mention, right? And those mentions, just the fact that your brand is present, is mentioned somewhere, is acting somehow like a no-followed link. So in the past, we just had links. For some time, everyone was saying just follow links, do follow links, follow links. Then no follow links kind of came into being, but I think a lot of tests, a lot of studies show that no-follow links also like count and also help. And even there are studies showing that just having your website URL pasted somewhere and being unlinked on a website also is like a small factor, is a factor, authority factor for Google, for search engines. And the same thing is basically happening here. If you are just mentioned, this is a good signal. This is like an authority signal. So this currency of authority is a little bit transformed because we are talking about citations being cited, and versus in the past we talked about how many backlinks you have, right? So this is still similar, but maybe like the naming is different mostly to my mind.
And obviously, in relation to citations, you also say that quotes. So I assume quotes by perhaps your brand experts on other websites, not necessarily linked, could be more valuable than receiving a link.
Not necessarily more, but they will also be like valuable, and they definitely count. And it is good to get such a mention, and you don't have to obsess like 10 years ago that they have to link it. We have to like ask them to add a link. Maybe it is not really that necessary. And overall, like I cannot stress this enough how much my favorite part of SEO, technical SEO, is important in this new AI SEO, GEO, LLMO, SEO arena.
And in relation to technical SEO, that's just as important as it ever was, and that includes the structure of your content on your website as well. So what does a well-structured website look like nowadays, and has that changed?
Things are kind of similar. The most important thing is, can search engine crawlers and can ChatGPT, Perplexity, and other AI bots crawlers access your website, crawl your website? If they cannot do that, you won't be able to to be shown there, cited there, linked there. Another thing is, can they see the content without JavaScript rendering? Because like Google is good at rendering JavaScript, but it's always like safer to have the entire content shown without it, without the need for rendering. And the same is true for chatbots. Most of them, as I think at least as of now, do not really render JavaScript. So if you don't have your content in the source, then chatbots won't be able to like see what you have to say. Structured data, the same thing. You can really convey a lot of information in structured data about who you are, what you do, like what you talk about, what you're an expert at. And the structured data is like a very good language to communicate with machines. Again, search engine crawlers and chatbots. So in terms of technical SEO, there are like a few other elements as well. And when it comes to like the website structure, the same thing. You want to have your topics like clustered in a specific way. You want to have like the main topic, which talks about like subtopics, and you want to have them linked between one another, so that wherever the bot is coming from can really learn about like the relationships between, like, this is a subtopic of that, this is a question related to that. Building the structure in this like logical way, creating silos. We don't have to be super strict about it, but in a like, we have to like stick to a specific topic within a specific like part of the website, or like the entire website should ideally like be just about one topic. We don't want to talk about everything unless we are a news website, but that's a different thing. So the better the structure, the better it is for bots to understand your content, and then strengthen the content internally through, for example, internal links as well. This is more for like maybe search engines, but the same things apply, both here and there.
Olga, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Remember that AI SEO still runs on SEO, and the craze about AI SEO is a little bit, I think, too big, because search engines, especially Google, still rule, and you have to play by their rules. But if you want to rank in those all chatbots, you still, like, the 90% of what you have to do is remember about SEO fundamentals. And if you do that, you will take care of basically everything you need.
Olga Zarr is an SEO consultant and founder of SEO Sly. Find out more over at seosly.com. Olga, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here for the 4th time or so super happy. Thanks for the invite.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at seoin2026.com.